Yo, what's going on, everybody? Akeem here, and today I am talking about the Black Panther film. I recently saw the Black Panther film, and so I thought I would jump on the mic and just talk about some of the things that I witnessed in the movie. No spoilers, of course, but just some of the things that I've noticed watching the film. Now, the Black Panther film explores many different topical issues, the majority being those that are faced by the Black community. This inclusion is to be expected with a predominantly African-American cast and the overall history of the Black Panther comic book franchise. Now, one thing I noticed, aside from the film being a perfect superhero movie, is the fact that it's been long overdue. Now, me as a black kid growing up on the south side of Chicago, I rarely saw characters in film that I could look up to that looked like me. Most of the African-American superhero films in the early to late 90s, even bleeding into the 2000s, were comedies, such as Blank Man, Meteor Man, and even Pootie Tang. I'm pretty sure a lot of you guys remember Pootie Tang. Now, while those films are rife with comedic gold, very funny films, what kind of message was Hollywood trying to deliver to the public? Was it that society wasn't ready to see blacks as superheroes on the big screen unless it was a joke? Maybe they thought that these particular films wouldn't necessarily be blockbuster hits if the lead role was a black character or if they didn't take the comedic angle. But how do you change Hollywood's interpretation of an entire race? How do you change their minds and have them approach the depiction of African Americans in a different light? One of the ways I think things began to change for the better for us as African Americans was through the introduction of African American superheroes in television. Static Shock, Green Lantern in the Justice League series, Spawn. These characters were strong representations of black males in animation. And in the late 90s, there was a bit of an evolution in minority representation in superhero films, with Steel starring Shaquille O'Neal, the Blade series, and the Spawn movie. Now, though Steel was a bit of a flop and both Blade and Spawn were extremely brooding one-dimensional characters, as a black kid longing to see someone that looked like me in a superhero film, it was all I had. So I took it. Now, as the years progressed in the 2000s, we did begin to see minorities depicted as superheroes on both television and film. But what would be the blockbuster hit that would place us on the very same plateau as all the positive, strong depictions of Caucasian superhero films? It definitely wasn't going to be Hancock. Now, I love that movie, love Will Smith, don't get me wrong. And yeah, in the end of that particular film, we did in fact see Will Smith's character become the hero that city needed, but he was a pretty reckless superhero who cost the city he lived in millions of dollars in damage. Essentially, he didn't care and was lazy. Now, what I'm trying to say with all this is that it took us a while as a society to get to this particular place in time where we're able to have an amazing mix of strong characters, both male and female representations on both the big and small screen. Movies like Wonder Woman, shows like Jessica Jones and Luke Cage, with these, a kid growing up, boy or girl, are able to see someone that looks like them representing a superhero they just might admire and look up to. I mean, seriously, what a beautiful time to be alive. Now, this brings us to where we are with Black Panther. Black Panther is one of the few Marvel films to stand on its own 2 feet. There's no Iron Man, there's no Hulk guest appearances to keep T'Challa company for the 2 hours and 30 minutes he's on screen. Nope, none of that. This is all about T'Challa and his Wakandan brethren and sisterin. Now, as I stated earlier, there are a lot of different dynamics the film explores. Now, one of the dynamics the film explores that some in the black community have faced is growing up in a fatherless household and the effects that could potentially have on a child. Eric Killmonger, one of the antagonists in the film, his father died when he was like 7 or 8 years old, growing up in Oakland, California in the projects. Growing up without a father in the black community, living in an impoverished part of town, could potentially lead you as a black youth down a dark and self-destructive path filled with violence. Now, I don't want to get too much into statistics, but there are statistics to show this to be true. Now, of course, there are many people that have risen above that whole not having a father in the particular household to become successful black individuals. And this is just with anyone. This isn't just necessarily in an African-American household where there is a lack of fathers. So of course, like I said, there are statistics to show that there is a stronger likelihood of something like that happening. But of course, two different sides to every coin. So of course, I'm not saying that that is something that will inevitably happen if you are living in an impoverished neighborhood, an African American, and you live in a fatherless household. The parallels between Eric Killmonger and our modern day society is rather unique. In reality, sometimes a black youth might join a gang to fill that missing male figure in their lives. Eric Killmonger followed a similar self-destructive path, but did it in a more intellectual way. He graduated from MIT and was in the military. Now, the military, similar to street gangs, you get that sense of camaraderie, and those who you fight side by side with potentially help to fill that missing male role due to a lack of growing up with a father in the household. That's one of the parallels I noticed with Eric Killmonger and reality, modern day reality of someone with his similar circumstances. Now, Eric Killmonger was more of a victim of circumstances outside of his control, as well as a victim of his own anger. As one might feel if their father simply left them at a young age. Now, while his father was killed, Eric felt as though an entire country abandoned him. There was no valid reason for T'Chaka, who was the Black Panther at the time, to leave Eric upon the death of Eric's father. But he chose to because it was a reminder of something he wished to forget. Now, this obviously parallels real-life instances, as sometimes a father or mother might abandon their child for the simple fact that the child reminds them of a past they wish never happened. Honestly, it's some screwed up stuff. With this, Eric Killmonger is one of the few villains in the Marvel Cinematic Universe that I personally feel has been humanized and to a certain degree justified in his actions as a supervillain. Though his methods may have been a bit harsh, in the end, it was something that T'Challa actually adapted in a more humane way and disseminated to the public. It's crazy how much of an effect Eric Killmonger's character had towards the end of the film on T'Challa. And in fact, if you take a look at Eric Killmonger, his journey was one of vengeance and not of terrorism. He trained his entire life so that he could one day claim the throne of King of Wakanda. Now, I wouldn't justify his actions on how he went about claiming the throne, because if he were in fact more level-headed, he and his cousin T'Challa could have potentially ruled side by side. Of course, there can only be one king, but he still could have been there by T'Challa's side. If you've seen Black Panther or have any plans to see the film, I'm sure you will pick up on how Eric Killmonger's character was portrayed in a more humanizing way. I mean, taking a look at past Marvel villains depicted in films, there aren't many that have been humanized in this particular fashion, if at all. In fact, this film opens with T'Challa's father confronting Eric Killmonger's father and calling him a traitor to his country before causing his death. That's some real brotherly love right there, seriously. I'm being sarcastic, not really. We then later find out in the movie that Eric Killmonger discovered his father as he lay dying on the floor in the housing projects. There are so many different layers within the film that show just how Eric became the person he was as an adult and how it was kind of out of his control. One thing you cannot say of Eric Killmonger is that he's inevitably the product of his environment. He was an MIT grad and the top of his class in the military. He was able to overcome his circumstances, but he was driven by anger into becoming the villain of Black Panther. And honestly, he's one of the best villains so far in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I don't know, I'm telling you right now, Thanos is really gonna have to bring some heat in this Infinity War, man. Seriously. But I know that ain't gonna happen. Eric is one of the most human, fully realized and fleshed out characters, one of the most fleshed out villains for sure. And if the comics are any indication of what lies ahead, perhaps we'll see Eric Killmonger resurrected one day. Who knows? Stranger things have happened in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, like the Human Torch becoming the leader of the Avengers, or the Human Torch becoming the villain and then the short-lived leader of Wakanda. You know what? Marvel has guaranteed us that if you do one day in one of our future movies become Johnny Storm, more likely than not, you'll be reincarnated as another superhero or villain in the MCU. We know that to be certain and true. So all this to say that the Black Panther movie means so much to me, and I'm sure to many people out there currently watching this video. This is the type of film I personally wanted to see when I was a kid, and I'm so happy that younger kids are able to experience such a strong and positive depiction of African Americans on the big screen. Finally, this is our chance! I'd love to know your thoughts on what this film means to you. No matter what your ethnicity is, I'm sure you're able to find some resonance with the message of this film. Share your thoughts with me down below and make sure to hit that bell icon so you can be updated whenever I'm posting new videos. I'm dropping new videos every single week, so you're gonna wanna subscribe. The best way to find out is by subscribing to my channel. I'm Akeem once again. Thanks for checking out this video, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.